Even encountering a regular bear is a nightmare in itself. But next to this giant that roams Alaska's misty forests, an ordinary grizzly bear pales in comparison. Before you stands the Kodiak bear, one of the world's largest predators. This creature is a true display of power that pushes the boundaries of the wild. But it's not just its massive size and claws that keep the Kodiak bear alive. Female Kodiak bears possess an extraordinary survival trait developed by nature. In fact, its body can determine months in advance exactly when its cub should be born. And once you understand how this works, you'll gain a much deeper appreciation for how this giant manages to survive, even in Alaska's harshest wilderness. The Kodiak brown bear, also known as the Alaska brown bear. It lives exclusively on the isolated Kodiak Islands off the coast of Alaska. According to scientists, Kodiak bears have lived almost completely isolated on these Alaskan islands since the last ice age. This isolation, spanning over 10,000 years, has transformed them over time into a vastly different and massive subspecies compared to ordinary grizzly bears. Common grizzly bears living in Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho typically stand between 6 and 8 feet tall and weigh between 400 and 800 pounds. However, Kodiak bears living in the Kodiak archipelago in Alaska far exceed these normal limits. They stand out with a weight easily exceeding 900 pounds, a height of 9 to 10 feet when standing on their hind legs, and incredible muscle strength. The largest Kodiak bear ever recorded in the wild weighed 1,656 pounds and stood 11 feet tall when on its hind legs. That's nearly twice the height of an adult. But don't let its massive, heavy appearance fool you. It can move much faster than you might think. They can reach speeds of 35 miles per hour. This colossal size possesses an astonishing speed capacity that even the world's fastest human couldn't match. So how do they manage to reach such massive sizes? Actually, the answer is simpler than you might think. This species, native to the Kodiak archipelago, evolved over years in an isolated environment. Although competition was limited, they consumed more food than other bear species thanks to the high-protein food sources available to them. However, the real abundance begins at the end of summer. Alaska's rivers transform into a veritable food corridor. As hundreds of salmon swim upstream, Kodiak bears hunt almost non-stop throughout the day. Especially during this period, they can consume millions of calories in a single season. And the amount of energy they consume during this time is so high that a Kodiak bear can store the equivalent of the calories an average human consumes in about a year within just a few months. As a result, their fat storage capacity has increased even further. This excess energy not only ensures their survival, but also allows them to grow slightly larger with each generation. Over time, this combination of isolation, abundant food, and low competition has transformed the Kodiak bear into one of the world's largest land predators. Especially when the salmon run begins, Kodiak bears head towards the rivers of Alaska. And this is not just about survival. It is a critical process for maintaining their size. However, contrary to popular belief, Kodiak bears do not feed exclusively on salmon. In the spring, they feed on fresh plants and grasses, and by late summer, they consume high-energy wild berries. They also eat seaweed washed ashore, small invertebrates, and other food sources they can access when the opportunity arises. Following this process, Alaska's long and harsh winter begins. Kodiak bears retreat to their dens, entering a months-long hibernation period. During this time, they sustain themselves on the fat reserves stored in their bodies. And this is where the most fascinating part begins. Female Kodiak bears possess one of nature's most extraordinary survival mechanisms during this period. But the most extraordinary part begins here, because at this point, it's not just hibernation, but also the reproductive cycle that comes into play. Mating occurs in the summer, but the embryo does not develop immediately. The body pauses the fetus's development for months, waiting for the right time. Pregnancy only becomes active again once sufficient fat reserves have been stored, and birth takes place in the safe environment of hibernation. If she hasn't eaten enough salmon and her fat reserves are low, the body reabsorbs the embryo to save its own life. However, if everything goes smoothly and enough energy is stored, the pregnancy resumes months later, deep within the cave, during hibernation. Yet this massive creature gives birth to cubs no larger than an orange, weighing about 1 pound. During this process, the mother bear does not sleep completely. While in a state of semi-sleep, the cubs take shelter beneath her thick fur, feeding on milk rich in fat, and grow for weeks in the cave's safe warmth. So, what happens when such massive and powerful creatures encounter each other? Typically, grizzly bears defend their territory. However, Kodiak bears are surprisingly peaceful. The immense abundance of salmon in the rivers has allowed them to hunt side by side without fighting. As a result, Kodiak bears have developed a more peaceful social behavior compared to many other brown bears. Most of the time, they prefer to tolerate each other's presence rather than expend energy. However, one of the biggest challenges these animals face today is climate change. As Alaska's river systems begin to change, the timing of salmon migrations is becoming increasingly irregular. This poses a major problem for Kodiak bears, and female bears are particularly affected. When they cannot store enough fat, the likelihood of giving birth to cubs can even decrease. All these characteristics demonstrate that this bear species is not merely a massive mass. Through thousands of years of evolution adapted to Alaska's harsh living conditions, it has become a living survival machine. Thanks to this extraordinary system, which shapes everything from its strength and speed to its dietary diversity, and even when its cubs are born, it remains one of the world's most impressive land predators to this day. What do you think is the most impressive trait of such a massive predator? Our next stop is Wyoming. A legendary giant awaits us, one that once changed the fate of North America and ruled the entire continent with its power, moving in massive herds that shake the open plains.